Hi everybody, welcome back to Capricorn Radio TV. I'm joined today by my co-host Hilary Raimo, and we're going to be discussing shamanism on the show today. Speaking today's author who's with us on the call is Itzhak Beery. We're going to be talking about the gift of shamanism. A little bit about the author before I bring him on. He bridges the indigenous shamanic traditions that his teachers entrusted in him with a contemporary shamanic approach relevant to our modern life. Originally born in Israel, he's now based in New York, as my co-host too, Hilary Raimo, and he conducts their shamanic healing ceremonies and teaches seminars internationally and co-lead trips to Ecuador and Brazil's Amazon. You can catch today's author on his website, Itzhak Beery. I'm going to get him to spell that for us at some point in the show, but without further ado, let's bring on our co-host and our guest. Hi, Hilary. Hi, Itzhak. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Hi, James. Hi, Itzhak. I'm so excited about today's show. I'm looking forward to it greatly. Thanks for being here with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me, of course.
Itzhak, I guess tell us a little bit about you before we get into the shamanism. Can't wait for this. Myself and Hilary are versed in shamanism a little bit and interested in it deeply, but I'm always interested in the person as well. Tell me about your life in Israel, how you come to New York, maybe a little bit about that little bit of background.
Well, I was born in Israel to parents who came from Poland and Russia and Belarus. I was born in a kibbutz Beit Alpha, which is not too far from the Sea of Galilee. On the slope of Mount Gilboa, the famous biblical mountain. We grew up as a communist settlement. We never really celebrate anything that is spiritual. Actually, anything that had to do with religion was not allowed or was looked in detest because of the way our parents rebel against their parents, and they wanted to create a new society, a new man. That was the goal, to create a new human being. And in many ways, that's what I'm trying to do now in my work in shamanism. Sure. To maybe not create a new man, but to remind people who they really are.
Wow. Wonderful book. For those who don't know what shamanism is, because there's various aspects to it. So maybe you could give us some of the various aspects and tell us about the shamanism that you do in its best general setting that you can.
Well, shamanism is the oldest spiritual practice or practical practice that was being practiced throughout the human civilization from the time human walked on this earth, and it's a work with the elements, nature elements, with the spirit elements. And it's about bringing balance to people's life, living in balance with nature and with themselves. Nobody invented shamanism. It's not like a religion that have a head or a spiritual guide. It's been practiced all over the world. It has many different names for this practice, and every culture it has a different name and a different people who are practicing it. In some cultures, the male shaman have a different name than the female shaman, but they all have a very common belief in that the world is all alive, that everything in the universe is energy, and their ability to the shaman to interact with the spirit or with these energies and consciousness can create change in people's health and mood and mental and spiritual existence.
I'm really interested. I have to ask this. I'm fascinated that you come from Israel and you now live in New York, and you're in the shamanic world. I really would love to know what that personal moment was of yours that brought up in Israel and in that type of environment. Myself as an American would question, how the heck did he get into shamanism? What was his experience like? So I'm really curious what that was.
In looking backwards, I can say that my upbringing in the kibbutz was a perfect introduction to shamanism, because we grew up in the 50s near on the mountain, and we were very exposed to work with nature and the plants and the spirit and the wind and all these elements all around us. We celebrated holidays, but we celebrate them as a celebration of the seasons and the weather and the changing of the weather. So it was a great experience, and I think that many of people who are living in urban situations right now, they have a very strong roots to nature in their childhood. For me, it was not really just one moment. It was when I was in my midlife crisis, in the beginning of my 40s, I started to feel that my advertising career and my art career and family and children, they were all wonderful and satisfying, but there was something I really felt that something was missing. And I couldn't really put my fingers on it. And for a few years, I was a little lost, which is what a midlife crisis is about changing course and looking deeper into our own existence. And so for me, it was a process. But what happened for me was I was invited to go to Hawaii, and I ran to a bookstore, and it's all in this book. And I picked up a book by Hank Wasselman, Spirit Walker, which was a kind of a revelation for me, because in that book he writes so many personal incidents that really gave answers for me about the big question that I was asking myself. And then the end of the book, he was writing about a workshop he took with Michael Harner. And so when I came back to New York, I find out that Michael Harner is teaching here in New York. So I took that workshop, and it really changed the way I experienced the world, because for the first time, I was doing shamanic journeys, working with power animals and spirit. And I was able to travel to other realities or consciousness and also to other people's body and diagnose them. And it was so accurate that it really frightened me in many ways. Mm. And then from there, I took a few other workshops. And then I took a workshop with John Perkins. And John was at that time organizing a trip to Ecuador. And I just knew that I have to go there. I didn't know why. I didn't plan to become a shaman or anything like that. I just knew I have to go, and I did. And I had an amazing experience with one of the Yachaks from the Andes, Don Jose Joaquin Pineda, and with others. And it really changed the way I was experiencing myself and the world, and I wanted to do more of that. A year and a half later, I went back to Ecuador because I had this incredible vision about the Shuar people, which I wanted to relay to them that message myself, because it was too strange and important, I felt. And at that time, I went to visit Jose Joaquin again, and I had another initiation vision while I was doing the La Limpia with him. And after that, he offered that I would become his apprentice, and I did apprentice with him for 3 years, mostly in New York, when he came here for 6 months a year. And I was doing a lot of healing work with him and teachings with him. And after that, I met, or at that time, I met another shaman that was very important in my life, Ipupiara, who was from Brazil. And I studied with him quite a lot, and for 12 years, and I went on a trips with him to the Rio Negro area where he's from, and I studied with many shamans over there. So I can say that I never really had a plan to become a healer, or definitely not. never really thought of myself as a shaman. I always looked at other people who have these incredible visions and incredible experiences, and they knew how to read the future and cards and palms. And so I always thought that other people have that experience, that power, but never me. And when Don Jose demanded that I would start doing healing, I really couldn't even understand why he wanted me to do that. I totally rejected it. It took 2 years for me to surrender to that work, and I'm doing it now for 20 years.
Wow. For me, it's a relatively recent thing, looking into exploring and experiencing shamanism. But why do you think it's like there's such a big rise in shamanism in terms of a global scene or interest or intrigue?
I can see it in, I have a website called shamanportal.org, and that is a hub of all the global shamanic activities. And I can trace to see who's coming to visit this website. And the interesting part is that most people who are visiting this website or are interested in shamanism are people who are coming from the high technical areas of the world. They come from the Silicon Valley, they come from New York City, they come from Baltimore area, they come from Chicago, and they come from London and Canada and Europe. It's where people are part of the digital revolution. And I think what happened here is that it's not enough for them. They want something more. They want something that is real, something that is connect them back to nature and connect them back to their own power, to their own birth-given rights, to work with their spirit, to find out what's the true nature of the world, not to be told by government or by corporations or by health insurance or religious organization what's right and what's wrong. They want to experience it. And the shamanic teaching is about personal experience of all these forces and forming the worldview by your own experience. And I can tell you myself, I was born or I raised to be very skeptic. To ask if it's all true and why is it true, and for me it was a long process for me to accept the experience, the shamanic experience or the visionary experiences in my life, and to see how those experiences really shape my life. And it's not only my personal choices or community choices. It was really my ancestors pushing me to do this work. Mm-hmm. So my great-grandfather was a Kabbalistic rabbi and a healer in Poland, which I never really knew until 4 years ago when I went to Poland.
Wow. So,
and he actually worked in the same field that I did, which I do is the work between the evil spirit, the good and evil spirit, the fight between evil and good spirit. And that's what he did, dedicated his life to. So I think that working with shamanism all around the world now is really an answer to the disconnect, to the digital world, to the virtual community. People really want community. They want to be connected to nature, to connected to their own power. They want to experience it themselves. They want to form their own opinion about the world and how they can interact with the world. And I think that's why most people now are going to Peru and to the jungle to drink ayahuasca or other plant medicine to see for themselves, to learn more deeper secrets of themselves.
Wow. Would you say it would be fair to say that shamanism offers a more sustainable consciousness? I mean, I'm familiar with John Perkins' work, and when he wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman, He talked a lot about coming from the corporate world, which is an unsustainable type model, if you will, as far as earth-based perspective goes. Wouldn't you say that people are probably also feeling or craving a connection to earth, and in order to do that, they have to give up a lot of their belief systems?
Well, yes, one of the earlier books of John, which is I think it's a masterpiece by itself, is The World as We Dream It, and in that book he writes about the Shuar people who are. When he came and asked him what can he do to repay them for saving his life in the Amazon, what they told him is that please don't try to save us. Save yourself. Change your dream. That's the best thing you can do, is learn to change the nightmare that we are living in into a dream that is sustainable. And I think that's really what the best thing we can do as a society, as a northern society, as an industrial society, is to find a way how we can live with the earth and sustain the earth, and to basically to protect ourselves in our environment.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about the healing element. It's not just, I mean, a lot of people have a lot of misinformation about shamanism online. Just think you go and you drink a psychedelic compound and, it's all done for you. But there's a lot of retrospective stuff goes on, introspective. Talk about the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical elements to the healing process.
Well, I want to say that in the West now there is an idea that shamanism equal ayahuasca or plant medicine, and I think that it's a totally misguided notion, because ayahuasca and plant medicine or any other plant medicine help you to enter into this world, but it's not shamanism. It's part of shamanism, but it's not the whole story about shamanism. Actually, my teacher in the Andes, Don Jose Joaquin, he said that I should not drink ayahuasca because when you drink ayahuasca, you become lazy. You're making your brain not work for the ability to access visions. He also said that it's changed the DNA of your brain, so it's not something that you want to do. And it's not that I didn't do it or I'm not going to do it, but I also understand that it's only one part of the shamanic work. And when you are working as a healer or in the shamanic practitioners, you can't have ayahuasca in every moment of your day. You need to develop the ability to enter and to exit between the physical world that we are in and the spiritual world, the unseen world, at will. So I think that there is a craving in the West to find answer through plant medicine. But I think the second stage, or I hope that a lot of the people who are doing plant medicine, will graduate to the real thing, to the real indigenous way of connecting directly with spirit, with the elements, and not need to have that crutches that we use plant medicine for.
Wow. You talk about soul retrieval and the immortal soul. Maybe you could just give us a little bit about that and some of the detail of that concept.
Soul retrieval is one of the most important healing modalities that shamans all over the world are using. And they're using it in many different ways. But the premises is pretty much the same, that when we have a trauma or when we have experience of that we cannot really fully have a control over, like wars or battery or abuse or any other experiences, in order for us to keep ourselves safe or survive the incidents, part of our soul that hurt most leave our body. And in the shamanic traditions, the shamans enter into a state of other state of consciousness and find out what the incident was, and stoke that soul part, find that part, and see if that part is strong and able now to return to the person. And if the soul part is able to come back, then it's reunite that energy, that part of the soul back into the energy body of the person. And most people after soul retrieval, they feel renewed. They feel like their life is giving back to them. They feel like children again. They feel that their life changed. And in the book, in the Gift of Shamanism, I give a few examples of that, of a woman who was an alcoholic, and she didn't know why it happened in her life. It turned out that she had this an incredible incident that she felt that every time that she walks on this earth, something bad would happen to her, and the only way she can really survive it is by drinking. And the results of the soul retrieval was that she stopped drinking alcohol, and her life totally changed, and she's changed. So it's a great opportunity to reunite part of the souls. And you can ask yourself, do I need a soul retrieval? And I can say that most of us have an incident where we gave up on part of ourselves, that we sent this away. And sometimes it's demonstrated in feeling that there is a hole in our body. There is some emptiness that we don't really know what our direction. We feel depressed. We feel empty. Mm-hmm. We feel like life goes by around us and we are not participant in it. And I think that's one of the signs of soul loss.
Wow.
Well, I have a question. I mean, how do we bridge the indigenous old ways of shamanism as it's perceived to the modern digital world? I mean, how do you see that bridging for people? The generations that are growing up underneath us are very connected to that virtual world. They're growing up in a completely different paradigm. So how do you see shamanism reaching these generations that are growing up in that digital world?
I think that this is as a shamanic practitioners, this is exactly what we are working for. And I truly believe that people who are doing this shamanic work now needs to go into schools, into nursery schools, into university colleges, to help children reconnect. It's not something that we lost. It's not something that is not inside ourselves. It's something that we lost. So the shamanic work really is about reconnecting or meeting those parts of ourselves that were gone or lost. And in many ways, you can say that if we talk about soul loss, you can say that in our Western world, that dream of occupying, building, industrialization and all that, we lost some part of our soul. So in many ways, the shamanic work now is really about soul retrieval on a global way. It's about reconnecting ourselves to nature, to our own nature, to the feeling that there is part of that we are part of the whole universe, that we are not separate, that we are not better, that we are not different than any other animals or trees or mountains or brooks or springs or oceans, that we are part of that, and we need to be grateful of that. There is a feeling for young people that yes, you have control over your iPhone or your smartphone, but it also comes because of the feeling that we don't have control. We are not really grounded. I think it's incredibly important for shamanic practitioners everywhere to devote some time to work with children, to work with youth, and give them that gift of working with spirit. That when they are in distress, when they are in doubt, they can go and do a shamanic journey and get real answers to their life. Mm-hmm. And I've done that in one of the most scientific high school in New York, Stuyvesant High School, and I've done many classes there. And in a graduation ceremony, one of the kids came to me. This is a kid who studies science and math. And he said, Mr. Beery, I wanted to tell you that the only practical thing that I learned the whole 4 years in Stuyvesant was your class in power animals. So I gave him a tool. That he can journey and find out answers. He doesn't have to wait for the teachers or the parents to tell him what's right for him.
What do you think about the race concept? When you talk about shamanism, most people perceive that, the brown-skinned Native American or so anything but a white person with blonde hair and blue eyes. I mean, how do we cross that cultural barrier where shamanism is perceived to be only for a select few, or the indigenous teachers who really don't share that quite yet? They haven't quite come out of that box of sharing that information. I know that there's a movement sweeping through where a lot are believing that now is the time to really come forward and share the teachings and talk about the things that normally were very secretive. So I guess my question is multi-parted, but how do you see that happening? The race card, and also that, well, I want to throw religion in there too, but maybe that's for a later question.
One of the things that we have to remember, that even if you are white with blonde hair and blue eyes, you are a daughter of this earth. And we are all native of this earth. Native Americans and other indigenous cultures don't have the patent on spirituality and shamanism. We are looking for their guidance, yes, because we lost our ways. But we are all native of this earth. And I think part of our belief system in many ways is that we don't have that, because we have blue eyes and blonde hair, but it's that taking away our responsibility to the earth. We need to assume our own spiritual shamanic power, even though you are born in different culture. And if you do believe in reincarnation and coming back into this earth, we don't know where your ancestor came from and what did they do and how did they guide you now. And I think that Ipupiara, my teacher, said it in such a beautiful way. One time in a workshop, he said, just because I'm wearing this poncho and I have feathers in my head and I have a long ponytail and I speak in a strange accent, doesn't make me a better shaman or more powerful shaman than you are. I think that it's a great message for us because it put the responsibility back to us. It's true that indigenous cultures all over the world kept their connection to nature, connection to spirit, much longer than we did. And there is a lot that we can learn from them. But it's also true that they have a lot to learn from us. They can learn a lot of the technological achievement that the Western Northern cultures have. And I think that it must be a synergy between these two cultures, like the prophecy of the Inca, the eagle and the condors, that needs to fly together now in the new Pachacuti. So I think that we should not relish our power just because the color of our eyes or the colors of our skin or the colors of your hair. We really have to understand that we are all children of this earth.
Wow. What I like about the gift of shamanism, Itzhak, is the full spectrum of shamanism that we get, because like you said, people can get very focused on one element, the most popular being ayahuasca, which is kind of very popular in the news at the moment. But maybe you just tell us about candle reading. This was something I wasn't aware of, and that's what I loved about the book, because I got to learn something. So
yes. Well, candle reading is a very old Andean tradition. Shamans, before they do work, they do diagnostic reading, and they do it in many different ways. They do egg reading, they do coffee reading, tea reading, they do rock reading, bones reading. And one of those techniques are the candle reading that is done quite extensively in the Andes. And I was really fortunate to learn it from Don Jose Joaquin in Ipupiara. Mm-hmm. And although they didn't teach me in the way I teach it today, which is kind of like a shorter version of that, I sat behind Jose Joaquin for 2 years, and he didn't really gave me the ABC of that. But one day, which is what the traditional apprenticeship is about just observe, learn, see. So the idea is that when you rub candle on person's body, the wax absorb your physical body and emotional body and spiritual body, the energy body. And when you light the candle, you can see inside the flame what's going on in the person's life. You can see spirit, you can see ancestor, you can see the physical element of a person, if they have a back pain, or if they have thyroid problems or heart problems. You can tell if the person is depressed, or if your person there's a lot of going on. You can read through that, but the concept is that each person is surrounded with energy bubble around him, the energy body, where we are storing all our memories and where all the traumas and our ancestors are there. We are negative energies are entering into this area and pollute the energy bubble. And that's why we do after that we do the La Limpia ceremony to remove negative energy, or to remove curses or evil eye from the person. It's a system that not too many people are teaching it, but I took it on myself to try to spread the use of it, because it cuts the healing process to a very short time. You immediately can diagnose a person, and you can address that in your healing.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of wonderful stuff in there, psychonavigation as well. And that's why I said there's a full spectrum of shamanism in there, Itzhak. Another aspect of shamanism is people tend to talk to their ancestors or lost ones or loved ones who have passed. It's something I've never experienced. I've always curious, would that happen to me when I did a shamanic session in Peru? Sadly, no. I got all the other emotional healing and the spiritual healing, and I needed that too. I think you tend to get what you need. I don't think you get to talk to the past ones because you would like to, but some people do have a negative hang up on that, Itzhak, and they need that to let go of that. So maybe you can talk about that element of it, and I know you've facilitated people in that process.
Well, I think that if you are going to Peru or other places to do ayahuasca or any plant medicine, mm-hmm. you may want to do some shamanic work before you go. It's like throwing somebody into the ocean, the middle of the ocean, without him knowing how to swim. When you are going with knowledge how to interact and how to decipher the codes of spirit work, mm-hmm. and you do ayahuasca, then you have the lexicon, then you have the ability to navigate the spirit world. If you are thrown into it and all of a sudden you see evil spirit come your way, you see visions that you don't understand what they are, you have no tools to really decipher what it is, and it could create shock, and it could create paranoia, it could create depression. And I know that because I see people who are coming back from these trips. They come unprepared. And I think that if I have a message about that, is to, if you want to go to Peru, if you want to go to do ayahuasca in all these places, now you don't have to go to Peru because it's under every tree there is somebody who's doing ayahuasca in England and mm-hmm. in Europe and in the United States. Do yourself a favor, take a workshop with Power Animal, with Ancestry, so you have a way of handling the experiences that are so volatile when you are meeting the spirit of ayahuasca. And you have to remember, the people who are doing ayahuasca traditionally for thousands of years, these are indigenous people they are growing in this society. They drank this ayahuasca when they were children. Their parents helped them understand these dreams. It's part of their life. They understand that everything is alive, that their ancestors are speaking to them constantly. They know how to navigate the seen and the unseen world because this is part of them. They speak to the trees. They speak to the jaguar. They speak to the anaconda. They don't come from a digital world that has no connection to spirit. So prepare yourself to do that. Go and study.
Would you say then that parenting would have to be unlearned in some ways, because you get the children, but if you don't have the parents on that belief system and they're tied up and tangled into typical religion constructs, then we have kind of a confliction of what to believe, right?
Well, of course. I mean, you know what? When I came back from my first trip to Ecuador, I was in a ceremony with Alberto Tasso, and in the middle of this most sacred ceremony with fires and the La Limpia ceremony that he was doing, and we were all standing naked by the fire, his son came running with a little bicycle and singing songs and playing with all these instruments. And traditionally, if you come from our country, you can say, hey, this shaman doesn't know how to control his child. He gave me a whole different model of parenting, because what he did was he was so patient with this child. He didn't show him that he's doing something wrong. The child was curious. He wanted to know what everything is. And yes, I hope that people who are doing the shamanic work have a different model for parenting. They allow children to experience their world themselves. They allow them to put their hands in the mud, climb trees, get bitten by a bee, and they swim in the river and don't walk with sneakers. It is important to have, and I think that's part of the new revolution in education now, that people are now in all over the world are understanding that it's not what we want the children to learn. It's what the children wants to learn. They need to learn to experience it, and it's many ways. That's what the shamanic work is,
It's like, what do you hope the reader to gain out of the book? What as an author, what do you want them to engage in? Do you want them to understand the shamanism at its core? Is it a teaching experience? What do you want the readers to take from this book?
I wrote this book in many ways because as a skeptic with a certificate, I was so shocked by my experiences that I needed to write them down. Wow. I need to validate them. And I came to see that through many of the people who come to my workshops and other people, that we all have these experiences. I'm not very unique. I mean, these stories are amazing. If somebody would tell me these stories, I will tell him that he's crazy. But I believe that, and I know that many people have even more extraordinary stories. And I think what I want this book to be about is to give permission to people to talk, to share, to validate their dreams, to validate their holograms, to validate their knowing, the deja vus, that all these experiences that they are going through, and share it with others. Because I think like many people have said to me, now that I see all this, how can I speak to people at work? I mean, I feel alone. And the thing about it is that this person that sits in the next office is probably going through the same experience, is afraid to talk to you about that too. So I hope that people will validate their experience. They will be curious to go, and if they have that desire to experience more of their own power, mm-hmm. and to share it with other people, so other people who are doing this work would not feel so outcasted, so different, so not respected. And I think that in many ways, it's not true. I mean, we all are shamans. Every one of us have these experiences, and everyone is able to heal as a shaman by speaking softly to somebody, to tell somebody that they love them, to show compassion, to hug. Hugging is a very important tool of healing. We all have intuitive powers within ourselves. Acknowledge them, live with them, and that really, when you start living from your heart, from that place, you are basically doing shamanic work, and you are taking responsibility for the earth, and we have a better chance of sustaining the earth for the next generations, which is what I wanted to do for my grandchildren.
You're initiated into the circle of 24 Yachaks, I believe, by the Quechua teacher in Ecuador. Tell us what that is. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, the truth is that I can't really tell you what it was because my eyes were closed. All I knew that it was after a series of initiations in the lake at night and other things like that. And he called me and he did a special initiation ceremony, which I can't really tell you because I was my eyes was closed. All I can tell you what I felt, and I felt that this was something important, something different. That he gave me power, the warrior power that he embedded in himself. I came out of it in a totally different energy that I came in, and I think the whole idea of initiation is an important. That's why I'm doing this webinar, as I said it before, to help people to find their own power through initiation, through going through test of will, and to be acknowledged by their teachers or by their community.
It's like, take a moment to give out the website and tell us a bit about the webinar and where people can find out more information about you.
The webinar is run by Evolver Lab Learning, a learning lab. It's embracing your shamanic initiation power. And you can always go to my website, itzhakbeery.com, itzhakbeery.com. You can send me an email, and I'll be very happy to talk to you.
Wonderful. Hillary, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I have a last question, kind of topic I'd like him to speak on. How do you see shamanism changing the relationship between men and women in our modern day society?
It's an interesting question. In indigenous cultures that I went through, in the Shuar tradition or the Andes tradition, each gender have its own different roles, but men and women are equal. They are not subordinate to one another. Actually, the Shuar women have more power over men because they are the responsible to make the chicha, and the chicha is what sustained the community. Without chicha is that beer, fermented beer that make from the manioc root. Men are not allowed to make it. So if a woman wants something from the man and is angry over a man, she just doesn't give him to drink, and then he goes hungry.
No chicha.
Interesting.
But men have to go and do hunting, and if they don't bring something, the woman would not give them the chicha. So I think that we have a different take about men and women, but in indigenous cultures, they recognize the different role of men and women, but they are all equal in the family structure. I think I'm not the expert on that, but I think that what happened in the last 2,000 years with Christianity, where the whole idea of the feminine or the making the feminine as evil is very much responsible for where we are now in relationship in the Western society between men and women. Women, I mean, the new Pachacuti, the new period of time that started in 1993, according to the Inca tradition, is that the new Pachacuti is and also the new prophecy of the Baktun, the new counting of the calendar of the Mayan is about the return of the feminine. Is about accepting the role of the feminine, the strong power of the woman as the life-giving forces, as the passionate creative force, as the nurturing to the earth and for humanity, and to celebrate that. And in many ways, it's the return of living with a connection to the mind and the heart together. So I believe that more people who are practicing shamanism, they understand the difference between the genders, but they are celebrating the equal power that each of the gender have for our life, for a fulfillment of our life. You can't have a whole society that is driven by male energy, and you can see what happened with the GOP. That it's all about will and power and control and fear and scarcity. You have to bring back the heart, the nurturing, the passion, the creativity, the compassion to our life.
Wow.
Thank you for that.
Wow. It's like, whilst preparing for the show, I had another book arrive through my door, Shamanic Transformations. I haven't read it yet. I will do. It looks really interesting. It's edited by yourself, and there's quite a lot of contributions in there by different people. Tell us a little bit about the book. This is the latest one out, and how you are involved with that and the compendium. It's kind of like a compendium with a lot of people.
When I was working on Shaman Portal, a friend of mine suggested that I will find something to engage people, to tell us their own personal story, how it all began. What is that moment of aha, the moment of the eureka, that their life changed. And it really was fascinating for me, because I wanted to know my teacher's moment of that. I wanted to hear from other people who I admire, the writers, what happened. Like the same question that you were asking me. And so I started to collect those stories. I asked them to write their personal stories about their moment of discovery, the moment of aha. Mm-hmm. And so we have 48 stories, including mine and my introduction there, and 47 other stories that are just amazing, with Hank Wasselman, John Perkins, Sandra Ingerman. So there are so many different beautiful stories, and it's such a beautiful account, and that I think that each person who are interested in shamanism or in the awakening moment should read that, and I'm sure many people will identify with that journey. But I think that what's interesting to me in that story, which is that I did not expect it, and that's in the book by one story by Luis Miguel Madrona and other shaman Quitrone, that in indigenous shamans, they don't have that moment, because they live that moment from the very beginning of their life. They understand that every moment is a moment of aha. Every moment is a connection between us and the great mystery. So it makes life, when you're asking me how shamanism can change your life or the Western people life, that's exactly what it is. It's when you are connected every moment of your existence to the mystery, to the miracle that life gives us in every moment. That every moment is a chance of recreating the world. And when you live in that gratitude, in that mystery, in that excitement, in that beauty of that moment, how can you do bad things? Wow. You really have to. You really want to celebrate the creation of life. So I think that is an amazing, beautiful story, book, with all these stories there. But it's a great lesson for us in the West, that we are, in many ways, we are kind of running after this awakening moment, the enlightenment moment. Just give me one enlightenment moment. But the enlightenment moment is not a one moment. It's a series of moments that happen every day, every moment. And if we can live in that beauty, in that thought, in that responsibility that we are the creator of that moment, and witness it, that will be a great way to change our life and to change our dreams, our society.
Wow. You got a wonderful nature about you. Great talking to you today. It's you're at the top of the hour. The Gift of Shamanism, awesome book. Get yourself a copy of it. Today's author, Visionary Power, Ayahuasca Dreams and Journeys to Other Realms. Absolute pleasure talking to you, Itzhak.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate your inviting me here to share it. And I'm so happy to meet you, Hillary.
Yeah, same too.
Yeah, I heard about you, but I never really had a chance to meet face to face.
We're going to talk to you in the not too distant future, Itzhak, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anytime, really. Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.